opportunity for pool fans to take their family out there. There are a myriad of attractions, International Drive, Disney World, all of those parks. You've got Universal Studios, a new Universal Studios park is on the horizon. SeaWorld, go and see Shamu. Yeah, it's a great destination. I can tell you from personal experience, I've been there many times. And also, if you want to play a little bit of early morning golf, you can do so on a wide choice of courses and then come back and watch the pool.
Yeah, I'll tell you, looking at that lag, usually that overhead gives us a good idea. That one was tough to call, probably like the match itself. Two guys I think that are very, very talented, way up there on that scale, and yeah, might spend couple weeks there in Florida. You never know during that Mosconi. Maybe talk Phil into bringing his golf clubs, come a couple days early.
You've talked me into it. There's a golf course right across from the venue, actually, called Hawks Landing, which is really good. I think it's a par 70, loads of really interesting par 3s over water. Interesting's one word for it.
Yeah, I've spent many a time playing golf in Florida. Grandparents lived just south of Orlando there in Winter Haven. Last 30, 35 years of their life. Lived in Jacksonville, Florida for a couple years, and we used to tee off and have them big 8-9 footers just sunbathing on the back of the tee box of alligators, and you had to get used to it.
Here it's a battle of two big beasts in the world of pool. And I think you would have to make Fortunski slight favourite. Well, I certainly would.
Yeah, absolutely. His first two wins were good wins, solid. And, you know, I think he's worked on his mental game. Of course, Soufi hanging around. Really got to look at him. Another one that's not afraid to pull the trigger, and you got to appreciate that, especially when the pressure's been so high, and you could tell just from day one. Going for the cross side bank with a little bit of a big pocket with the green 6 there. The 9 to bonus.
The cherry on top, 1-0 Fortunski. I can tell you, one of the great giants of European pool over the years. Well, he's not in the tournament anymore. Niels Fine beaten by a gentle giant from the UK, Stephen Ellis. What a tournament he's enjoying on home soil. Ellis coming through 9-6. That was in losers qualification. And how about Mario He? He was 5-0 and 6-2 down to Phil Burford. It's gone hill. Max Lechner, He's friend and fellow Austrian, 7-6 down to Dimitris Lukatos. Early doors, Torsten Homan 2-1 upon Shane Walford. Ivo Arts and Besar Spahiu, hill also.
Yeah, and I can't tell who's at the table on table 2. Looks like the Filipino is just a shake of the hand there. So a good run for Sam Henderson. It looks like he goes down 9-8 in losers qualification. But he'll be back.
Let me tell you, folks, our commentary box this time is quite away from tables 1 and 2. Viewers of a certain vintage will remember Lee Majors, Steve Austin, $6 million man. You've got that bionic vision, Jeremy.
Well, in the left eye, the right's a little weak, but it didn't help me on the pool table this week. It was more in the brain, but yeah, I used to love the bionic man. Used to watch a little of the bionic woman too. Oh, you can't afford those. And that's something when he made his run at that World Championships a couple years ago. He had none of these. He just never missed that real open ball, and then he came with the special one over and over again also.
When we covered his match against Sam Henderson, I actually drew the comparison between Soufi and Tony Drago. Erratic, inconsistent, at the top of his game, mind-blowing, but capable of missing a ball like that, capable of missing anything.
Yeah, and a miss right back at you there from Fortunski. Didn't look settled over the 9, really. Yeah, Tony, that's what happened with Tony. It's the same thing. He just didn't miss any of those easy ones when he did win the event. This is going to fall a little straight and a hair awkward going forward now to short side on the brown 7.
That's no criticism of Soufi. It's just the way he is. That's the way he plays. That's the way he rolls. And when he's on, he's a joy to watch.
Yeah, I think he would tell you the same thing, really. You know, he's going to try and always clean up a few things. That's just human nature. But I think he's, you know, very far from getting away from what's him, just like right there on the 9 ball.
And it's not just the pace of play. It's not just the approach and the aggressiveness. It's also the actual technique. That's unorthodox as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually when you see that, that means they started at a very young age and really never kind of changed that sidearm approach. But to me, that's a sign of talent. You know, you got kind of awkward cueing. You can cue the ball very fast. Don't have to really think much. Get a lot done. And of course, his counterpart in this match, Fortunski, I've always felt one of the more talented guys on tour.
Well, we just talked about inconsistency with Soufi. As far as Mieszko Fortunski is concerned, he's been very consistent on the World 9-ball tour.
Yeah, almost to as, you know, I wouldn't say undoing, right? It's great to be consistent, but you could tell how much he wants it. There for a while, he'd have a little bit of a, you know, mental anguish and show it on the table and maybe cost him a rack or two. I played him twice, actually, and he was really young when I played him, and you could see that, but the talent is way up there. All right, this is where Soufi, you know, doesn't always go traditional, but again, very talented and kind of sees things he can do and feel confident in doing. I like this play here, trying to come 3 rails behind the 7, or excuse me, the red 3. He's left it open, and that kind of shot, usually anyways, if you put your mind to it, you can kind of control the object ball a little better than you think as well, to where you can really play that more behind the 8, just in case you don't get the snooker.
Couple of pots missed by the lefty Fortunski already.
Yeah, knowing his game, I thought a little bit definitely on the ball jacked up, but even more so, maybe a little steery there on the stroke. Had a lot of space to run the cue ball. It did catch it thick, but you got to believe it was more about a little let up. Shots like this is where Soufi's really fun to watch. Now he's asking to have the cue ball cleaned. I've seen that a few times from him this week, but it means he's most likely going to play this soft with spin. Could kind of level out and go into the 9 if he wanted, but I think it's going to be a hair of left side. Pretty much just a straight ball.
Not just a quick player, a very swift sighter as well.
Got a little straight here, maybe a hair of an angle. I don't know if it's worth risking with a combination that does play. You know, in the rankings, you think about the rankings and everything they impact, and they will impact more as things go on, but you know, how many great players aren't going to make the final 64? And that's just from the simple change of it's not a complete open event as far as entry past those 128. And I think it's going to solidify even more and more, Phil.
Yes, and that draw for the last 64, when it takes place, is going to be monitored very, closely by all of those left.
Yeah, and that's the risk I was talking about. Instead of falling forward for what was a pretty simple combination, even though he's moved the pink a little bit, you could tell it was playable. Man, you hate to spin this. If you're going to go for it, I think you got to just run into the 5. I like this shot better. Just a little light. We'll see how Fortunski's feeling with the cross-side bank.
Tell you isn't feeling well in terms of his pool results. Albin Aushin beaten 9-7 by Georgi Georgiev of Bulgaria. So Aushin has been sent to losers qualification. The two-time world 9-ball champion has to overcome Fatim Haradinash. Always thought of Fortunski as a really good banker.
Yeah, banking's all about stroke. A pocket will lie to you a few times where a ball will fall with a bad stroke, but if you're banking the ball, it tells the truth every time. And I'd like to see Fortunski start to let the stroke out a little bit more. Easy to play, a little hesitant though. Table's very difficult. Little wide, overcut it a touch. That's why the cue ball threatened that side pocket.
Looks like he's going to be back in front. Indeed. He's one of those players, Jeremy, with a very aesthetically pleasing cue action. Is it a matter of self-belief holding him back, a lack of self-belief? Because if you look at what he's achieved in the last couple of years, he's won an awful lot of matches in these World 9-Ball Tour events. Just going to run down his results. This year has been quiet, but last year, quarter-finalist in this, last 16 in the European Open, last 32 in the US Open. All good achievements. He was also 9th at the International Open. Semi-finalist at the World Masters in 2022, where he reached the last 32 of this tournament, and the quarter-finals of the European Open. It's a good CV.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like a few of the Polish players really that consider them maybe the toughest country in Europe, and I think that gap's being closed quietly, but it's hard to really pinpoint why. I mean, you wouldn't call him a journeyman kind of pro. I mean, he's a player that definitely has the caliber to win the event. It just maybe kind of tells you how difficult it is. Of course, more events coming, so got to believe that it's just a numbers game for Fortunski.
Yeah, that's right. He's definitely a winner in waiting in terms of his ability. But the waiting room is getting crammed.
Yeah, without a doubt. You got some, you know, you just look at some of the veteran players that are here to compete that really have not that many big stage wins in their career, and it's just how pool is. And of course, now more of a schedule. I think things will open up for some of these players, but some of these players are playing their best pool and still haven't gotten that victory. I mean, we're still looking for Skylar Woodward, right, to really break through in that big table event. You know, 256 or 128, even a Whirlpool Masters if he was to get in it, something like that.
Well, in the world of snooker, there's always one player who's regarded as the best yet to win a world ranking tournament. Always someone with that monkey on his back. And right now it's a lad from the West Country in England called Jack Lazowski, who is so full of talent. It's extraordinary, but he still hasn't won one. And you hear people say it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of when, not if. Sadly, that's not the case. Sometimes it never happens. I fervently hope it does for Jack because he's such a good player. But that principle applies to pool as well. People are knocking on the door. There is no guarantee it's going to open.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And especially if you look at the way sport is these days, you know, the upper echelon is the science in it and the preparation and, you know, people that aren't playing, trying to make these players better. I mean, you want to do it as quick as you can. That's for sure. Yeah, Jack, he actually played in the UK, wasn't it? Last year, and super nice guy. And he kind of took to the 9-ball pretty nicely.
Smashing fellow. Some say he's too nice. I don't buy into that theory, but yeah, he's a really good guy.
Yeah, did all he could there, and that was more or less about the cue ball, I think. And once he decided to shoot at it, I think he was worried about running into the purple 5, maybe scratching off the 5 in the lower right. Nice draw stroke there. Little off angle kind of shot. He has a lot of power moving the ball.
Just got down, put maximum side on it, loaded up as though it was nothing. We talked about Drago, and Soufi's exactly the same. If he breaks off and gets a good split, he could win a rack in under a minute easily.
Yeah, I don't think you ever knew Luke Salvis from Montreal. Very, very good player, 9-ball player. Played professional tours in America for a long time, but he could beat you quickly.
Yeah, he was the one who always used to do really well in that ESPN speed shootout event.
Yeah, probably the best player to ever win that, as far as just the quality of player he was or is. Owns 2 pool rooms in Montreal, and Soufi with a quick tie here in game 4.
You would never say that Mieszko Fortunski is a tortoise, but in relation to Soufi, who's the hare, he most certainly is. Fortunski's actually one of those players that gets on with it, but Soufi's one on his own, he really is. He can rattle through racks. That's why he's so popular. And of course, the narrative surrounding last year's World 9-Ball Championship was just extraordinary. Had he won that, I think it would have been one of the most incredible stories in pool history. I think even getting to the final it was.
Yeah, I agree with that. And looking back at, the type of players that have won major events or gotten to those finals, it's been few and far between. Those, illustrious, really big majors of the U.S. Open and World 9-Ball Championships, those stand pretty consistent with the top players. Of course, you can't knock Soufi. He's hanging around right after he won a Euro Tour event, beating the guy that beat him in the final, world #1, Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. So,
yes, that was in Estonia.
Yeah, so kind of come from nowhere kind of guy, and it's been happening a lot in golf of late. Players 300 or 400 ranked in the world, 500, turning things around, now top 10, 20 players. But Soufi, he backed it up with a nice win there in Estonia, and he's here to stay. Very hard to push out. I'll tell you, he's gonna be aggressive most likely. So you got to take off the bottom half of the cue ball, I think, if you're Mieszko. Well, he's going to leave the bottom of the cue ball, and he's going to leave the most of the one possible from that left rail. I don't see how Soufi can attack at this to the upper right. I think this is I wouldn't say a bad push out, but I hate to give him the bottom of the cue ball. Wow, this ball's supposed to be shootable with the blue 2 up the table. One ball usually doesn't hang around. Yeah, I think he got ahead of himself with the safety. He's going to fluke the 2, though. So we'll see how Fortunski handles himself after what looked like a 2-7 combo on a bank in the last rack that should have fallen. And now a fluke on the blue 2 for Soufi.
One thing we must say, in the spirit of fairness, at times during that World 9-Ball Championship in Poland last year, he had the run from heaven. It was amazing. A couple of flukes I recall against Albin Auschen.
Yeah, but also I saw some players, you know, out of sorts because of him, I think, and the way he got around things and, you know, kind of painted himself into a corner many times and got out of it with his ability. And I think he had them scratching their head. This speed's going to have the cue ball near the rail. Doesn't want to be dead straight. If he's off the rail, though, he does not mind elevating the back end of the cue. Uh-oh. That's a friendly bump. That could have tied up on the 9 easily.
Oh, he stayed down. That gave us an indication he wasn't sure. He caught the near jaw and stayed out. Mieszko Fortunski can't believe his good fortune. And that is typical Soufi. There's always that bad miss in there somewhere.
Yeah, and that's why, of course, we love to watch him and the way he plays. But, you know, players and maybe the people he talks to, just an occasional second glance when he gets down on a ball. Players back home used to call it taking dead aim, just making sure you're settled.
Well, that was point blank range. It was the simplest shot you can imagine, and yet it didn't drop. So Mieszko Fortunski finds himself 3-2 ahead. Just going to ask you about Soufi. In cue sports in general, if one player is going to dictate the pace of a match when there's no shot clock like here, normally it's the slower player. But there are rare animals who are really fast players who, by playing that way, can knock the other guy out of their rhythm by being really quick around the table.
Yeah, but you'll notice it's only the ones that keep knocking the shots in, Phil, right? The ones that play fast and miss a lot, not too much bother. But like you said, it can go the other side of the spectrum, which can really kind of jolt a player and get them off their rhythm, or even a little mental in a match when a player like Soufi keeps knocking them in on what looks like a 5-second shot clock.
In goes the 2 to the side. Yes, fast players, when they're buzzing, can be really intimidating.
And if you have feel here, touch, you can plant them behind the 9 or the 7. I kind of like the 7 a little bit. Maybe not. Draw to the side rail and plant them one rail behind it. The brown 7 on your lower right. He's going to try and hold behind the 9. You cannot let up. Oh, real good. Not much he can tie up and just concede ball in hand either. He's got to go 2 rails around the purple to the bottom cushion, the left long cushion, and go at the 1 with some speed. It's there. You could even come the 3rd cushion behind it. 2-game lead in this match so far. Phil looks like a pretty big lead. Yeah, that's all I saw there. Just try and hope you get a snooker and play some distance.
Must emphasise that although this is on the loser's side, it is a race to 9 because it's loser's qualification. So still early days.
This ball rolled over on the point a little bit, so drawing past the side, very difficult. Coming across for the cut, not easy either with the 9 in place, so may go forward here to short side. Pretty smart shot, just lean on your talent. And shots like these, a few shots, he's kind of like put a little cinchier stroke on the ball. I was very guilty of that in my matches and just realized you got to just play the cue ball like you normally would. That's what's going to keep everything the most accurate.
I can think of a really good analogy, actually. If you play on a golf course that you perceive to be tight, that's when you're going to steer off the tee more often than not, rather than let out the normal stroke. And basically, that applies in these tight pockets here. If you try and be too careful, it compromises your game.
Yeah, I always say the biggest thing when nerves are high or conditions are tough, or the combination of both, is pros is just get a little tentative with the swing. Same thing happens with the putter, major championships in golf, even tennis actually.
Fortunski still to be headed in the match, and now for the first time he enjoys a 2-rack cushion. Let's give you some results up the top of the losers qualification round. Mustafa Alner from Turkey beat Win Antoine of Vietnam 9-7. Ivo Arts of Holland came through against Besos Spahiu 9-8. David Alcady and Tobias Bongers are 7-7. Carl Naderberg, who defeated Jeremy and Carl Boyes, the commentator's killer, he beat BJ Usuri 9-3. And Petri Makinen, what a win for him over fellow Finnish player Jani Uski, 9-2.
Yeah, his best break off yet, really. Just real solid with the cue ball coming across. Got a little nudge as it came across, kept it a little below the rack with the 2 pretty open down table. Probably a jump shot here, I would guess. Don't mind rolling out there from the corner. Very hard to not only make the 2, but get position on the red 3. Yeah, interesting. A couple of these have been challenges from Fortunski on the push out against a guy that will shoot. Is there any future in this shot? Definitely play safe, though. Bank the 2 down, go behind the 7. Not easy, but doable. Came a little longer than he wanted. I like the option he was playing, though. Big wall of balls down here on the lower right part of the table. I think Fortunski's got to play the 2 behind all those balls as he coasts the cue ball behind the 7, maybe. It's a little off angle, though. Now, if he was comfortable, he could come off the left, go around the 7, and go at the pink 4 and 3 with the cue ball. He was going for the cut. I don't understand that shot. He may have left the gap.
Good camera angle there from table level. It's really tight, but I think it might be on, you know, this gap.
Well, he can definitely get at it. Don't know if he can get to the left side of it. That's really what he wants, of course, but you can usually add a little spin. Get around the 3. That's the part that, I mean, the straight shooting I've seen before with quick pace, of course, maybe not at his level, but his speed control, that's the one that's so impressive to me. You know, it's one thing when he's opening up and putting some speed on a fuller shot, but to be able to cut these balls nicely with distance and have such good speed with the cue ball at such a pace around the table, to me, is very impressive.
He's from Latakia, the principal port city of Syria. When the civil war erupted, he left, had a harrowing journey into Europe. And from a pool perspective, I think the most interesting thing about him was that for years, or for a number of years, when he resettled in Germany, no pool halls near where he lived. He was on a very limited income, so he couldn't afford to get to the pool hall, and he couldn't afford to practice either. Still rose to world-class level, but that last shot was the opposite of world-class. So far short.
Yeah, and opposite of what I said earlier about the speed control. Had a big area to come down table, too, to get for the 8 with the 9 somewhat near. This is going to be hit a little heavy and give Fortunski a look. Fortunski does not mind going for the bank. Actually sits pretty nice, too. Just a high ball coming to the left rail with the cue ball.
Absolutely nailed it. He could quite easily be behind. In fact, Mieszko Fortunski, with that length of table bank on the 8 ball and the elementary 9 to follow, leads Mohammad Soufi 5-2. On table 15, Tobias Bongers and David Al-Kadi 7-7. Max Lechner 7-6 down to Dimitris Lakatos. Not a good start on table 4 for Shane Walford. 5-2 adrift of former world 9-ball champion Torsten Homan. Loho Sum 5-1 up on Gindak, Cyprian Gabriel. Ralph Souquet coming off a marathon match in the previous round. No ill effects, he's 4-1 up on Wu Kun Lin. Simon Corral 4-0 over Petra Urban. 3 each, Kostas Kukiadakis and Mickey Kraus. 5-3 for Bernie Regalario over Liu Hui Chan. Chen Wei Chen and James Arenas are 2-2. Fitim Haradinaj 2-0 up on Albin Auschen. Are we going to see a major name depart before single elimination? Elliot Sanderson 5-3 down to Liu Riteng, who was beaten by Joshua Filler in winners qualification. Alvin Angito is through with a 9-5 win over UK veteran pool player Tommy Donnellan. Tolian Han, veteran himself, leads Phuong Nam Pham 3-2. Nikos Economopoulos defeated Lucas Fracasso Werner 9-2. Jack Whelan 6-3 over Daniel Guttenberg. Jonas Suter Camino leads Yannick Pongas 7-4. Dennis Grabber and Mark Bijsterbosch. Good contest that, 4-4. And Jan van Leerup from Holland leads Adam Smith from right here in the UK 8-1. Adam Smith was a very famous 18th century economist. I don't think this one is an economist. He's certainly not got the right numbers in that match.
Well, there's a fine player from Michigan, actually, Adam Smith. Pretty young still, probably 40 or early 40s, something like that. I haven't seen him play in many years, but yeah, Adam Smith from the UK. He plays in many of these WNT events.
If you're watching in the great state of Michigan, by the time it gets to November 30, it's getting rather chilly. So why not head down to Orlando, Florida, to the Sunshine State and the Mosconi Cup, the first time we're ever going to be in Orlando, and what a debut it's going to be. Pretty much all of the seats are sold out now. I think everyone's surprised by not the uptake, because we knew it was going to be a very popular event, but the speed in which the tickets were sold yesterday when they went on priority sale. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, well, you know, we always talk about things, and of course throughout the year or whatnot, talked about possibility of the Mosconi not being in Vegas, and I always thought it would be very good. I thought it would have to be a very remote area of the country for it not to be so good there in America, and I think it'll continue and continue to be even better come November 30th. What a day to start going into December.
I'm not quite sure of the dates. I'll have to check this out, but there's another big sporting event in Orlando around that time, the Father and Son Golf Challenge. Tiger Woods and his son Charlie have played the last couple of years. It's around that time.
Well, there's always something going on in Orlando. It seems like it's year-round. Disney's something else.
There are still tickets available because they go on general sale on Friday, but they are limited. And so my advice to anyone who wants to be there, and boy, it's worth being there, is to get in early. As soon as they go on sale, buy those tickets. Now, all the players are taking a timeout on table one. On table two, early days between Chen Wei Chen and James Arenas, one half of the Filipino team who won the World Cup as an unseeded side in Spain last year.
Yeah, I don't know much about Chen. He's not going to be too happy with that. Leaving a red 3 on. Not easy, but the pink 4 available. Oh, I love this guy at the table right here. Ever since the first time I ever met him, he's just such a gentleman. Great player. Plays with his emotions, you know what I mean? And you can always tell he's a little bit nervous. Watched him practice earlier, preparing for this match. Looked pretty settled. He's going to play safe, it looks like, maybe. The left side. Gotta go a long ways to get safe, though. Yeah, this really needs some help with the 9. Don't think he got the help he needed, especially with the pink 4 hanging. Even if he needs to jump the 3, it's okay.
If you're just joining us, his World Cup partner, Johan Chur, is out. Beaten by Chang Yulong 9-5 in losers qualification.
Yeah, and I really expected Chua to be at the Scottish Open and just get a little more acclimated. I like to see that guy play a few more events, but it's just, I mean, so many players consider him a top 10 or 15 player in the world, and No matter how great you are, you got to get a little used to it, a little more used to it, a little more time spent. Only that, we all want to see him play more too after that World Cup performance last year. Have you ever, all your World Cups, have you ever seen anyone stay more aggressive than Chua did last year in Spain?
Yeah, I felt almost guilty when I was commentating on that, because we were concentrating on Chua an awful lot. And obviously James Arenas played a big part as well, but Chua was the dominant partner. He was simply outstanding. And I remember they played Spain, didn't they, in the very first match of that tournament. And the bookmakers made the Philippines 25-1 to win it because they were unseeded. And I thought then it was remarkable value. And of course, the way Chua played, it was the value of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, FSR and David Alcady is that Spanish team that Phil's talking about. They play a lot of doubles together, but the Filipinos in general, they'll play 5-6-handed every day. Back to the action. Better break off, and he's sure to get a shot on the 2. Wow, looky here, Phil. He's going to go for the jump, but hasn't been much after the break for Mieszko. Yeah, but Chua, what he did is he was faced with shots to where he took the other team out of the equation. He just kept them in their chair, where a lot of people were play safe and give them an opportunity of some sort. He just made just unbelievable shots time and time again.
Yeah, sometimes in a team environment you feel a little restricted. It was as though he had all the freedom in the world.
And then, like you said, James came with a couple really big shots at the right moment. I remember a long distance 2-ball he jacked up. Who was it? I think it was the Coe brothers trying to make a big comeback after trailing by some 6 or 7 games.
Yes, the Philippines and the World Cup go together well, don't they? The inaugural winners were the Philippines, beating USA in the final, Efren Reyes and Francisco Bustamante.
Yeah, what a couple names that should go down as 2 of the greatest, and of course together, probably the best team ever. That's more like it. I like the decision to go for it. Just maybe playing to the high side of things. Paul Song and Dimitri Jungo at 7 apiece. A lot of people don't know Paul, but a player that's committed to this, as many of these tournaments as he can, and a very fine player from Atlanta, Georgia, trying to qualify.
Yeah, that's over on table 24, right in front of us, actually.
Yeah, how many close matches have we had today? 7-7 with Tobias Bongers and Alcady at the moment. 8-7 with Lukatis and Lechner. All these matches going to 9. Nice hit there, keeping it simple. He's got a 3-game lead, which looks huge in this match at the moment.
All matches in this round are either in play or have been completed. .256 player field, and later on this evening, only 64 will remain.
Two of the veterans still in this round trying to make it through as well. Nice stroke there, more of that athletic swing we're used to seeing from Fortunski. But To Leon Han played a rough one to start this tournament, but has moved on through this one lost side, and Ralph Souquet the same thing.
trademark a black glove. Fortunski always wears a black top as well.
He's going to have to use that touch here to come in behind the 7. Doesn't want to fall exactly straight. He's got a hint of an angle, which is pretty perfect. But this is the shot he wouldn't, you know, back down. Now, you don't want to baby it, of course, but you don't want to bang it. But he kind of has that just fluid stroke, opens up the pocket just a bit. Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at.
This is getting serious for Soufi. It was 2-all. Now Fortunski leads 6-2, and you can trace this all back to what happened at the end of rack 5. Soufi was in to win it, and he missed the most simple 8-ball to the middle pocket imaginable, with nothing to do with the cue ball, to have an equally simple 9. Jan van Leerup on the hill against Adam Smith at 8-2. Dennis Grabber now in front against Mark Bosch 6-4. Jonas Suto Camino on the hill against Yannick Pongers 8-6. Jack Whelan 6-5 upon Daniel Guttenberger. Liu Riteng 6-4 on Elliot Sanderson. And in the match we were watching a snippet of a little while ago on table 2, Chen Wei Chen trails James Arenas 3-2.
He's been pretty good with the break in this match overall. Not a ton of shots, but has a look at the blue 2 here. Can easily bank this down below the purple 5 and the 9 and let the cue ball kind of cozy over behind the 3. That's an option. He's looking to cut this in. All right, trying to come some 4 rails at the 3 ball here. Watch out for a little rub off the 9 or the pink. I think that was a bit of a 2-way. Pretty nasty safety otherwise.
Straight into open play. We talk about the pool gods. We haven't mentioned them actually, or certainly I haven't this time, but we do talk about them a lot. And when you miss a ball of the simplicity of the 8 that Soufi missed in rack 5, those pool gods do not forgive and they don't forget.
And it's had Fortunski just get more loose. I think that 2 to 3 game lead is what loosened him up as well. Seems he shed a few pounds also, Fortunski. Looks a little thinner. Was never overweight, actually. A guy I think that worked out quite a bit and pulled. You don't need to be a bodybuilder, that's for sure. May draw one rail into these balls. I don't know. Oh, look how much power he possesses to get that all the way up by the side. It's going to get a little more awkward than he expected, but what a stroke.
Yes, and effortless power also. Just timing.
Yeah, does it get involved with a lot of inside English here? Could just come kind of straight one rail, probably bump the 9 maybe. Looks like he's putting a touch of left.
The beat goes on for Mieszko Fortunski. 7-2. Mohammad Soufi now has a very tough job to turn this around. Now, just to clarify what we were saying before about the Mosconi Cup, it's the 30th of November, then for the first 3 days of December. It's at the Carib Royal Resort in Orlando, Florida. An absolutely world-class venue, by the way. It's going to be a wonderful arena which is going to be configured ideally for everyone to get the best possible view of the action. USA against Europe, of course. And although tickets have been selling very, very quickly, I must clarify what we were saying before. It's not a sellout. It's one of those situations where on general sale tomorrow it is. There will be some tickets available, but again, I'll just give you the advice: get in early, because they are bound to be snapped up quickly if the priority sale is anything to go by.
Yeah, absolutely. That's as safe as bet as you could get in the pool room, that's for sure. It's going to be a great event. Not his best hit on the 1. Iraq kind of acted a little funny. Soufi with a chance, nothing much but a safety, but at least something to get the ball rolling. Just a little thin on the 1, it looked.
It's understandable when you're facing this kind of hefty deficit, but Soufi, shaking his head, looks dispirited.
Yeah, he needs an offensive shot to get himself going, it seems like, and maybe a mistake from Fortunski we don't expect, but he's really kind of cleaned things up after those first, like, 4 games. Played pretty solid. Tricky here with the 8 kind of covering the 2 a little bit. May just play the safety. Okay, May bumped. Oh, he didn't bump the 2 at all. Look how good the speed was, right? Just to hold the 1 just in case he didn't make it. A little bump on the 2 would have helped gain position on this red 3, but he should be okay. Looks like the angle's taking him 2 rails into the 6 here, so won't be a ton of speed, but there will be some. They got beside it playing a rail first. It's going to be a little hot. Went after a similar thin one earlier in the match, overcut it a bit. See, he caught rail first there as the 2 wiggled in.
Early on, he was prone to a few mistakes. But in the second half of this match, I think he's been excellent.
Yeah, real calm. Time at the table's been pretty consistent. Rhythm around the table. Now playing for a 5-9 combo to get to the heel with a decisive lead.
Nothing but net. Mieszko Fortunski 1 rack away from single elimination at the Bedvictor UK Open, and that's because he leads Mohammad Soufi by 8 racks to 2. Also on the hill in a much tighter match, Tobias Bongers 8-7 over the reigning European Open champion David Al-Kaidi. 8-7 also Dimitris Lakatos against Max Lechner. Torsten Homan going nicely against Shane Walford, 7-3. Loho Sum 5-4 up on Gendak Cyprian Gabriel of Romania. Ralph Souquet's early lead trimmed to 4-3 over Wu Kunlin. Simon Corral 5-1 over Petra Urban. Kostas Kukiadakis and Mickey Kraus 5-5. And Albin Auschen in early trouble, 4-1 down to Fatim Haradinaj.
A dry break in his last of this match, so Soufi has an offensive shot. See if he can get it going.
Well, as Billy Thorpe knows to his cost, 8-2 deficits can be overcome. But this inspired pool player from Syria needs to bring his very best. That's what he can do. Just decimate a rack in no time. Put the clock on him and you would be very surprised just how quick he is. Let's put it this way, if he did make it through to the last 16 on Saturday, that 30-second shot clock would not be an imposition at all.
Yeah, they could take that hour and a half off, that's for sure, the shot clock person, but at least when Soufi's shooting, still see the frustration of giving a few away early.
Jan van Leerup has beaten Adam Smith 9-2. Dennis Grabber 7-5 up on Mark Bosch. Jonas Suto Camino through 9-6 at the expense of Yannick Pongers. Daniel Guttenberger 7-6 over Jack Whelan. And Elliot Sanderson fighting hard against Liu Riteng, 6-6 now. And suddenly, after that dry break, the chance emerges for Fortunski to put this to bed. Mind you, Jeremy, plenty of work before he does.
Yeah, he's got an odd one here. Of course, a chip in the side, but with the 7 there, that's the real problem, trying to come down for the 2. It looks like he's playing the 1 in the corner. Gonna draw back for the side, maybe. He's hitting the ball well, maybe overdrew the ball. There's some out here if he gets out, I'll tell you. May ease this in, try and fall below the red 3, maybe. Pretty shot. They take this in the side and draw to the side rail and back out to the center.
Tobias Bongers has beaten David Al-Kaidi 9-7. European Mosconi Cup stalwart out. Last year's world 9-ball runner-up, close to being out.
Yeah, but Fortunski showing us his class here in the case game, or his last game rather, or should be. Nice shot on the 1, really nice on the 2. Special with the cue ball here on the 3 to get on the pink. Looks like he's just going to ease this, play for the side. But I'll tell you, going into the final 64, and as it should be here for Fortunski, he can really lean on what he's done in the latter half of this match.
I think in terms of pure quality, the performance of Ko Pin Yi in match 2 today has to be the best of day 3. In terms of how they played on the main table. Fortunski rates highly, though.
Yeah, once he started getting a little freer with the swing, things really improved. It was a little tight at first, but just making really incredible work out of these last few racks. Showed us all kinds of different shots. Little banks, slow roll banks, holding the cue ball for position. Didn't back off too many shots either. Just wants to slowly come down the table past the 9.
Little steamy on the cue ball, he knew immediately. But the 9-ball poses no problem. You know, they call Johnny Cash the man in black. Paul's man in black has just cashed himself. He's into the single elimination phase with a very convincing 9-3 win over Mohammad Soufi, who will no doubt regret what happened at the end of rack 5 when he missed that absolutely elementary 8-ball to a middle pocket. Fortunski trebles up on Soufi, 9-3, impressive. Now, no more pool on the main table today, but it's not the end of the action for you, because we're switching over to table 2, where James Arenas, I was about to say he's going to take a 6-3 lead over Chen Wei Chen, but the combination is slightly misjudged, Jeremy.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. Looked like you said, a 6-3 lead and breaking the balls. Instead, it's going to be 5-4 after 9 games. We'll get to see Chen break the balls. Never really got to see Chen play. Don't know much about him. Of course, Chinese Taipei. They don't let you leave unless you can run racks.
It was the simplest combo you can imagine, and with that, Chen is back in the thick of things, trailing James Arenas only 5-4. We could have gone over there with impeccable timing and seen a very important rack. The last rack on table 22 was important for Max Lechner. Boy, it was a close shave, but he came through. Former US Open runner-up, beating Dimitris Lukatos, 9-8. On the hill, Torsten Homan, 8-3 up on Shane Walford.